Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Welcome to the first day and the first workshop of Fuel Milwaukee's Professional Development Bootcamp for 2023. My name is Corey Jo Biddle, and I'm the Executive Director of Fuel Milwaukee. Fuel is an affiliate of the MMAC, where I also serve as the VP of Community Affairs. And I just want to thank the MMAC for their support of this week's Professional Development Bootcamp. So by now, you guys know that Professional Development Bootcamp is a multi-day conference. This year, we're doing 6 virtual sessions and 3 in-person sessions, and all of them are focused on career development for Milwaukee professionals. But the cool thing is a lot of these are virtual. So if you have folks in your network that are in the region or outside of the region, you can share it. Share it with everybody. Anybody that's not from Milwaukee, share it with them, and then we can sell them on Milwaukee, and then we can support the mayor's goal to get Milwaukee up to 1 million people. So send it to Chicago, people, you know, all of them. Let's attract and retain them to Milwaukee. All right, okay, remember to go to the calendar on our website, fuelmilwaukee.org. This is the first session. We have 2 more today. All right, bootcamp would not be possible without our sponsors, and I want to thank our major sponsor this year, which is Associated Bank. At Associated Bank, their commitment to communities goes way beyond providing banking services. Associated creates opportunities for individuals, families, and businesses to fully participate in and share the rewards of building economic stability. Their focus is residential lending, helping small businesses, grant making, and other community investments. Be sure to check them out at associatedbank.com. Thanks for sponsoring this year. They're new. They're new to the bootcamp family. Well, we also have 2 returning sponsors. One of the returning sponsors is our supporting sponsor, American Family Insurance. American Family. Some of y'all aren't even old enough to remember that jingle. You don't even remember it, but I'll play it for you during one of the sessions. I'll find it on YouTube somewhere. American Family Insurance is committed to driving lasting social change, and they are well known for investing in the community where their customers, employees, and agency owners live and call home. So check them out at amfam.com for all of your insurance needs. Thanks to American Family for sponsoring. Also returning, Radio Milwaukee. How many of you are fans of our media sponsor, Radio Milwaukee? Yeah, Radio Milwaukee is creating a more inclusive and engaged Milwaukee through music and stories curated for a culturally open-minded community. This is easily, in my opinion, one of the most beloved stations and very easy to listen to. I can listen all the way through and not have to change the station. So remember to set your stations to 88.9 FM, okay? Now, get comfortable. If you haven't been to one of these Fuel webinars or sessions, we get real comfortable around here, okay? We're professional, but we let our hair down. So the place for you to let your hair down today is in the chat. We allow talking during the event, so you can go straight to the chat room and talk to each other, comment on whatever you hear the mayor and I saying, any comments that you want to make to other folks. Just make sure you set the setting that it goes to not just the panelists, but to everybody that's in the chat, okay? The second part for you to remember is if you have a question that you want to address to our featured speaker, make sure you put that in the Q&A box. You see it's right next to the chat box. In the chat box, that's just for you to socialize. But if you have a real hard-hitting question, the Q&A. Got it? Okay. Now, why are we here? We are here to talk to Mayor Cavalier Johnson. He is our first mentorship morning speaker for this year's boot camp, and I am so honored and excited to kick off the week with him. I'm going to read a quick little piece from his bio, but we're going to talk to him, so I'm not going to go that deep into it. So listen up. In April of 2022, Mayor Cavalier Johnson was elected the 45th chief executive of the city of Milwaukee, winning with more than 70% of the vote. That's impressive, right? A 36-year-old Milwaukee native, Johnson is the first Black mayor and first millennial, don't forget that, elected to the city of Milwaukee, which is Wisconsin's largest and most diverse city. We're talking to him this morning about his very interesting and exciting career path, his vision for Milwaukee, and what all of us can do to support his leadership of our great city. Help me welcome Mayor Johnson. You guys can clap in the chat. Yay. Hey, Mayor Johnson, you can go ahead and come off mute. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Good morning. I did not know that what I needed on a Tuesday morning was for Corey Joe Biddle to sing the American Family's Insurance Jingle. I didn't know that, but now I know.
I started doing it last year, and then when I didn't do it, people were like, what's up with the jingle? What's up with the jingle? Well, look, I am so thrilled and so excited to have you here today. What is your, at 8 o'clock, what have you done already today?
What have I done already? We'll get up about 5:20 and make my wife coffee and make breakfast for my kids. We get them packed up. I take them to school. I stand in line with them because they're in K4. And I drop my son off at middle school. Then I have a morning briefing with my chief of staff, and I'm usually sitting in the chair in the mayor's office by like 7:45.
Yeah, because you guys have twins, right?
We have twin daughters, 4 years old, and a 12-year-old son.
Yeah. That's awesome. Very active. The same thing. I'm like rushing here to drop the kids off at school. So you're just like a regular person still.
It's like a regular person still.
Okay, so I'm going to start in the beginning. The listeners will have a chance to ask you questions. They usually ask more. They'll ask more of like policy questions.
Okay.
But I just want to get the dish. Okay. So I'm also a Milwaukee native, just like you. So let's start there. What was it like for you growing up in Milwaukee?
What was it like growing up here in Milwaukee? Well, I grew up in 53206 primarily, and not just there, but a number of other places around the city. And we had challenges growing up. We had food insecurity, housing insecurity. I remember sometimes being a kid and having 5 kids in the house, and I'm the second oldest, and the only thing to eat was a piece of bread and syrup and a potato. And so that went obviously to the youngest ones in the house. I know, the sounds of sirens and gun violence and all that. And sometimes you can get numb to that. And I know that I certainly did growing up. I never was okay with it. I'm still not okay with it. But that's, for some people, a way of life. You get lulled to sleep by the sounds of gunfire. We need to work to change that so that that's not, kids' future in Milwaukee. But even with all those challenges, we still had some good times, right? I mean, having opportunities to be in school and have that environment where people were nurturing and caring, was, sort of a godsend to me and put me in a position to be able to go on and excel later on in life. And family, with all of our, challenges for families that live in places like that, they were loving and caring and tried their very best. And that's, all part of my story and all part of the reason why I'm sitting right here in this chair right now.
So when I was doing the research on you and sort of writing your bio for our marketing, I read a lot about you, and I noticed that part of your story is always in your bio, the challenges in growing up. So my first question is, when you were growing up, did you realize that everyone else around you, or like that everyone in the city, I guess I should say, wasn't growing up the same way? Like I always say, I didn't know that I was poor. Like I was kind of poor, but I didn't really know I was until I just realized it one day. My best friend in elementary school was Delia Kovac, Nick Kovac's baby sister. And I went to spend the night at their house. Yeah. And that's when I realized, like, okay, this is different. Yeah. Did you realize that when you were growing up, and why is it so important for you to keep that a part of your story you've advanced so far in leadership, but you make sure that you always stay grounded with that piece of your story? Why is that important?
Did I realize it growing up that I was poor, or that we had challenges? In elementary school, I really started to understand it. I remember having a conversation in second grade with one of my classmates at Parkview Elementary School, and talking to her even about like race and some of the challenges that African American people in this city face, that I certainly faced growing up, and the lack of challenges that she faced. Now I was projecting. I assumed that she wasn't facing many challenges, but that was a pretty deep conversation for a second grader. And she did confirm to me that my projections were true, that yeah, things were different. They indeed were different. She didn't face the same sort of things that I faced. She knew where her meals were coming from. She had clothes and new clothes and wasn't wearing, the Sega shoes to school from Payless, or the Shaq shoes from Payless. Anybody remember those? I used to wear those. I used to get ribbed a lot by wearing those. The hand-me-down clothes, all that sort of stuff. She didn't have those sort of things. And I remember in fourth grade as well, I remember sitting on the porch in fourth grade. I even remember what I was wearing. And this was on 21st between Wright and Clark. And folks may remember last year, in January, there were 6 people found murdered execution style, basically right across the street from one of the homes that I lived in, the duplexes that I lived in as a kid. And when I was there living at that place in fourth grade, I remember standing up on the porch and saying, I want more for myself. I want more for my family. I want more for my city, for my community. So I knew at a young age that things were challenging and things were different for me and people who lived in neighborhoods like I did.
At that time, when what did you see as the pathway to something different? Like, you knew you wanted more, but did you know what it was? How to get out?
I didn't know exactly what it was, especially in terms of like what I might do to put me in a better, financial situation, especially. I thought that a key to advancing was education. And so I really focused in on my education. And in that same moment, when I knew that I wanted more for myself and my family, my community, I don't know why, but at fourth grade, I made the decision to pull my pants up, and to, not go around speaking like the kids that were in my neighborhood or my brothers or cousins and things like that. Like, I wanted to try something different. I don't know why that happened. I don't. But that was a critical juncture in my life, I think, that helped to lead me here as well.
I wonder I always think about people's birth order when they come from a large family, and you were one of the older, it forces you to be more mature. Yeah. I think sometimes. What would your parents, if your parents were talking to me, what would they say about you as a kid? Like, what kind of kid were you?
What kind of kid was I? I mean, I think I was a pretty good kid, pretty much a self-starter. Dominique and I were just talking about this. My wife Dominique and I were just talking about this just last night, as a matter of fact. I was pretty self-sufficient. Like, I didn't need people to prod me, especially at the time where I made this decision to be a better student and all that.
Yeah,
I didn't need people to prod me. Like, I was a self-starter. Like, I knew what I needed to do. I got up, I did my homework. I enjoyed doing after-school programs. It was sort of a safe haven for me, and I sought out opportunities to get involved in things because that was some of the advice that I was given early on, and I took it to heart. I got my first job. I got recruited into a scholarship program to be the first person in my family to go off to college. And I did all this without, my parents telling me, hey, you ought to do this, you ought to do that. So that, and I, growing up, I loved and still do love Batman. You probably see some of the Batman stuff in the background here. And there's more in the office. And then I played a lot of video games growing up. So I was pretty self-sufficient.
Yeah. So after school programs where you got a lot of advice and the guidance probably that helps you choose a college and get on that path. I think about sometimes when we talk about the kids in Milwaukee and the school system, and there's a lot of disparaging comments made about our kids and the resources that they have and the economic disparities, but I always think about the programs that I was in as a young person and the influence. And I'm bringing that up because a lot of the folks on this call are going to be asked to be mentors or be asked to be volunteers or might be intimidated by that. But it's so important, and you know that when you have benefited from it, but sometimes you don't realize how key your everyday experience as a professional is to a kid that is looking for a pathway. Can you talk about that a little bit? when you were in those programs, how it inspired you to do some of the things that you've done?
Absolutely. If it were not for mentorship and mentorship programs, I would not be sitting in this chair. As you said, the first African-American mayor, the first millennial mayor, and it just wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't have happened. I was very fortunate in my late middle school years, early high school years to get involved with the mentorship program that paired me up with two caring mentors, one a professional mentor, one a more activities sort of mentor, but both instilled some very valuable lessons into me that I was able to build upon from the lessons that family members gave to me as well. My mentor, Jack Lund, who was the president and CEO of the YMCA of Metropolitan Milwaukee at the time, then left to lead the YMCA system in New York, the largest in North America.
Wow.
Jack was great. I mean, we grew up in totally different worlds, but he spent time with me every single month, and he imparted some wisdom on me that I carry to this day, and that I try to impart on young people that listen to me talk about mentorship as well. And Jack's advice was to, even though he was the CEO and making a lot of money, he said, it's important that you don't chase dollars. You need to chase purpose in life. He didn't start off as a CEO. He started off working at a YMCA camp, and just getting involved that way. He said, I just continued to work my way up because I was passionate about the work. It was something that I cared about. I wasn't aiming to be CEO necessarily, but I found something that I was passionate in. So he said, chase purpose, don't chase dollars. Victor Amaya, who has been my friend and a older brother and a family member for 22 years going on now. The person that gave me the nickname Chevy, way back when I was 14 years old. He and his family immigrated to the United States from Mexico, and he had a really thick accent. He couldn't pronounce my name, Cavalier. And so we had a camp, and he was my camp counselor, and I was going to be with him for a week, and he didn't want to butcher my name for a week. So he said, you know what, I can't pronounce it. Can I just call you Chevy? And it stuck. So people today still call me Chevy. But what's important to note is that even though he couldn't speak English very well, he was an English language learner, we still worked on our relationship. We built a relationship, and it showed that no matter where people come from, you can build bridges. And the 16th Street or 27th Street, 35th Street viaducts that separate the north side and the south side actually, I think, sort of embody our relationship, right? Mm-hmm. He lived on the south side, I lived on the north side, primarily. And even though there was this long bridge that some folks have said in the past was the longest bridge in the world, right? Connecting Africa and Europe. We were able to shrink that and have a strong relationship, the two of us. And there's some, mentorship advice that I got from parents and family members as well. My mom, said to never give up. And, growing up in the neighborhoods that we did, and she was the one that was a rock for our family. That's a lesson I took to heart. My stepdad said, if you do good things, then good things will come to you. And so I try to keep that in mind as well. And my dad told me to make sure that I get off the block and have new experiences. And that's helped me to go across the country and around the world. And so I take those things to heart, and they help to guide me even to this day.
It's so important that we push young people and push each other, and that they take it to heart. That's the key. Those two things together make a huge difference. So did you know, as you were preparing to go to college or choosing the college that you went to, what made you choose Madison? And did you know what you wanted to do?
What made me choose Madison? Well, I mean, in the scholarship program I was in, we had a requirement to apply to a number of schools. And so I applied to, 4 or 5 schools or something like that. I got accepted to all of them. Initially, my thought was to leave.
Oh, you got accepted to all. Don't gloss over that part.
I'm sorry. So I was very interested in Madison. Okay. Initially, though, I was going to go to a school in New York City, Pace University. And I got on an airplane at 18 years old, first time flying by myself. And I went to New York City, of all places. And I went there alone. I went to check out Pace and came to find out that it was obscenely expensive. And the folks there giving me the tour and stuff said that I couldn't, ultimately we decided I couldn't afford it. I told you about my mentor, Victor. He was a camp counselor. I then became a camp counselor and mentor in the program. So I was gone for a week to do that at the YMCA camp. I got back from the YMCA and then immediately left for another week and went down to Florida with my family. In the time that I was gone, I'd received a letter from Pace University saying, oh, we'll pay for it all. We'll pay for it. You just have to respond by a certain date. And I was living with my aunt and my uncle at the time. And usually my aunt was going through my mail and just checking up on stuff. And this is the one time that she did not check the mail. And so I missed out on the opportunity to even pursue the Pace chance. And so then UW-Madison was a school that I applied to and was interested in and had toured. And so ultimately we ended up going to Madison. And things happen for a reason, I suppose. And I'm eternally grateful that I had the opportunity to go to UW-Madison. It was a great informative experience for me. Did I know what I wanted to study and do there? Yeah, I did. And I knew it because back in 2001, when I was 14 years old, two things happened in my life or in the world that affected me and that sure affected many people. One was that I got involved in that pre-college program at the YMCA. That affected me. And the goal was to not just get kids to college through the mentorship program, but to also get them involved in service and giving back. And so I fell in love with helping people, helping seniors to rake leaves and shovel snow and feeding the homeless and all that. As a teenager, I enjoyed getting up on weekends and doing that work. I don't know why, but I did. And then later on that same year, 9/11 happened. And I at 14 years old, I turned on the national news and started watching. And I saw President Bush go to the World Trade Center, what was left of it, and try to rally people and bring people together during that challenging time for our country. And to me, the light bulb just went off and I said, I could marry the service aspect that I fell in love with the why with government and have a career where I get up and serve people, where I help people every single day. Yep. And that happened at 14 years old and I never looked back. So I knew I wanted to study political science. I knew I wanted to go into this, and here we are now.
Wow. Okay. So 4 years. Well, did you go all 4 years?
I did. Yep.
I thought you were going to say you graduated in 3, but okay. 4. You were normal like the rest of us. Okay. No. You graduated. And then, okay, you came back to Milwaukee. First job. What was the first job?
Well, my first job back here was working in workforce development. I started off as an intern with what's now Employ Milwaukee, helping people. Basically, it was a job to help seniors to retool their resumes, to get back into the workforce, and helping young people to get their first summer job. So there was that, but there were a number of experiences in between. There. Okay. I had the opportunity to spend my first spring break in college, not on a beach in Florida, but instead in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, helping folks there, going to London to work with at-risk young people, going to New York City to work for the YMCA for a bit. And of course, coming back here going to Chile in South America to help rebuild a school for poor kids. Wow. And then coming back here to do that work with Employ Milwaukee.
Miss Millie Colby in the chat, she said, yeah, Employ Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Representing.
Yes, she is.
Okay. When you were ready to run for office, what was your thought process and what was the first shot? Like, what did you have your heart set on?
I was young, and I was probably a little naive. My thought was that I knew that I wanted to do this. I knew this was what came to me for whatever reason, whether it was divine or internal or whatnot. So I knew I wanted to do this, and I also had this thing in my mind that said that people typically stay in office for a long time. And so if I'm ever going to get in, then they need to strike while the iron's hot. I need to do it now. So when I graduated from college, there was an opportunity that came up to run for Milwaukee County Supervisor in the 10th district. The former supervisor, Elizabeth Coggs, was leaving to go to the legislature after 22 years in office. And so I said, that's the example right there. Like, she was there for 22 years. If I wait around and don't strike while the iron's hot, then I'm going to be waiting for 22 years. Not knowing that things happen, people retire, people resign, things change. So I ran for county supervisor, just on the thought that I knew that I wanted to get in and serve people and do good things. And I lost it pretty handedly. There were 5 people in the primary election, and I came out in 5th. I got the fewest votes. Like, I got destroyed. And then the next year, an opportunity presented itself to run for county supervisor in a different district. And I had moved and, had relationships there as well. And I ran, and there were 7 people in the race. I came out 6th, and I got fewer votes the second time that I ran than I did the first time. So, to me, as somebody that, knew that I wanted to do this and felt like it was something that, if God told me to do, I was pretty demoralized. Demoralized. I got my butt kicked twice.
What kept you going?
I stayed involved in community service. I stayed involved, helping out in the community. So then I got involved with a community brainstorming conference, which is how old am I? So it's as old as I am, 36-year-old, community function, talking about issues affecting, the African-American community primarily. Got on their executive board, was helping out the seniors who were running the program there. Did other things, continued to work in workforce development and the like. And I, thought that, I still wanted to do this. And I ultimately did make my way to government. I made my way into the mayor's office. I was a staff person, the one that holds the mayor's bags. So I did that for Tom Barrett for a couple of years. And then again, I'm a young man, and I moved around a lot growing up. So I lived in neighborhoods all over. I happened to move again. And the alderman at the time, Joe Davis, was not seeking re-election and instead was running for mayor. He was challenging Tom Barrett back in 2016. And so I'm here in the mayor's office. I worked my way to government finally. And then I packed my box up, and I remember getting to the landing. If you've ever been to City Hall, the landing on the second floor, and I had my box in my hand, and I looked back at the mayor's office, and I left. I quit. And I didn't know if I would ever make it back to the mayor's office or City Hall even. But then I ran for alderman, and I applied some of the lessons that I learned in the past 2 failures for office, and ultimately ended up in a primary again with 5 people. Didn't come out in 5th place, came out that time in 1st place, and won that primary election, and then went on to win the general. What kept me going to do it? I think it's just, chasing the purpose, like Jack said before, just being focused on what I wanted to do in terms of serving my community, and, and not really taking no for an answer, just getting knocked down and getting up and trying again.
Yeah, it's running for office is, and I've never done it. I was married to someone who did it and participated in the campaign. And it is honestly one of the most challenging things that I've been a part of. And it's also one of the most satisfying things. So just for transparency, I've only told this story once when we were at MATC talking to those gap year students that I actually met. Do people call you Mayor Chevy?
They call me everything.
Because I'm like, I want to call you Mayor Cavalier, but it's like, I'm so used to calling you Chevy.
You can call me Chevy.
Okay. Mayor Chevy. I'm gonna put the respect on your name. We met when you were running for that county supervisor seat, because Ian Biddle, my former husband, was also in that race. And the day I remember the day that I met you, it was the first debate that you all had, and it was all 5. We were in that church on the church 20th and Walnut, and I can't remember the name of the church, but I remember you because I liked you right away. And so did my ex who was running against you. We both really liked you right away. I was like, he's really nice and smart. Right away, you could tell. In a debate, you can tell right away if somebody knows their stuff. I was really impressed with you. And I also remember that your campaign manager was Mandela Barnes.
Yep.
And I remember that because he had a cast on, like his arm.
Yeah, he did.
Why is that theory to my memory? I don't know, but I remember that picture of you. And when I was talking to the gap year students at MATC, I know you had to leave as I was, finishing my address to them. It was just telling them, like, you just never know where the people around you are going to end up or where you're going to end up, but you have to just keep moving and have a goal, but keep moving. Even if you kind of get, a defeat that, and I understand that feeling of a political defeat because everybody can see it and it's painful and you put so much work into it and it hurts. I mean, it hurts in a way that I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that before, but to just stay focused and keep moving. I am just so proud of you. I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. And I've appreciated, I mean, that was what, 2010, or I think the election was in 2011, somewhere.
It was, 2011, because I was pregnant with my 12-year-old.
There you go. I appreciate that. And you've been nothing but a great person and a great friend, really, since then. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. People ask me, how did you get the mayor to do boot camp?
Corey Joe just calls me up.
We go way back. Oh, so here's another thing that I wanted to talk about that I think is just so interesting. When you and the county executive came to speak at the, when you got, both of you most recently came to speak at the MMAC board meeting. Mm-hmm. And I was standing there and it's you and County Executive Crawley, and we're just standing there chatting. And I'm thinking, in many ways, we kind of grew up together. Mm-hmm. And I've been to many MMAC board meetings, and I've never had that feeling of familiarity with, two very powerful people. And the fact that we were just kind of all just standing there chatting. And I noticed some other people in the room who would normally be in the center of those conversations either were like kind of getting out of the way and just letting us do it, or felt a little bit like not sure what to do, not sure how to jump into conversation. And I'm saying all this because I remember thinking while we were sitting there talking, this world is changing. Mm-hmm. Things are changing so fast. And I was standing there thinking, oh, this is what it feels like to be connected in a deeper way to people that make decisions in the city. Mm-hmm. Because, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been in that position, and the world is changing. How is Milwaukee changing? How is leadership changing that? How is that generationally more inclusive, racially more inclusive, I think viewpoint-wise more inclusive, gender inclusive? How is Milwaukee changing, and how is leadership affecting that?
Well, and I do remember that conversation that all of us were having as well. And I could, see at the peripheral vision that the same thing you're describing was happening. In terms of how Milwaukee is changing, I think the fact that you just pointed out that I'm, in this position as mayor, and David Crowley is in the position as county executive is an embodiment of that. Both of us bring the experiences that we had growing up in our lives in the most challenged neighborhoods in Milwaukee to bear in these positions. The two highest public executive positions in our community. And so for, folks that live in difficult, challenged neighborhoods who know what it's like to, be evicted or to have housing insecurity, I know that, David knows that. And so that's why, it didn't take a lot of convincing at all for both of us and our governments to support a right to counsel program, for instance, for people who may have been evicted. Both of us know what it's like to be hungry as well. When I was at the U.S. Conference of Mayors just this last week, I joined with several mayors, in a meeting talking about ending childhood hunger, because I know what that's like, to not have access to food. I mean, I shared a short story about that earlier. I know what it's like to have parents who are worrying about where the money's going to come from to pay the rent. And so when an opportunity came to pull down federal dollars to help people to stay in their homes and have their rent paid, especially during the pandemic, we hopped on that right away, myself as well as the county executive. So we take those lived experiences and we bring them to bear in our offices. I mean, mentorship is one too. I mean, we've mentioned it, a couple of times here, that I would not be in this seat right now if it were not for mentorship. And that's why anytime I have the opportunity to join up with, a group that is talking about mentorship, whether it's here with you in Fuel right now, whether it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago over at Northwestern Mutual with All in Milwaukee, whether it was, the week before that with Linnell Ramey and Mentor Greater Milwaukee, I always step up and provide that opportunity. Even when it's kids on the street who are my age, and I say, hey, I can't be here forever. I'm the first, but I definitely don't want to be the last. You can do it too, because there's nothing special about me. We come from the same places. I try to elevate them to do that as well. Even for folks that, that approach me and specifically say that they want to run for office. I try to lean into them and give them information that I didn't have when I first ran for office, when I lost those 2 times. I try to give them, some guidance that way. So Milwaukee will continue to change. And I know for me as well, I'm interested in diversity, right? I had an experience, you're talking about UW-Madison, where I came from the city of Milwaukee and a really rich, diverse community, the most diverse in the state, and went to one in college that was not very diverse at all. So I know and value that. To the example of Victor, who is my brother, who is from Mexico, right? That means something. And Jack, who was a senior white man, who all were a part of my family and helped me to grow. So I value diversity. And I think those life experiences and those examples with, diverse groups, whether it's, in neighborhoods that are hard hit or, with people who are CEOs of, nonprofits or corporations, all help to push Milwaukee forward. And I can walk in any of those rooms. And that I think helps to put the city in a stronger spot.
Yeah, and there's an authenticity there. I think that's an interesting point about leadership, because I think sometimes people have an idea of what a leader is, but there's not a diversity of thought about their experiences or how you even incorporate your actual lived experience, your life, what is real to you into your. I think my most satisfying moments in this job or as a leader in general have been when I was the most authentic and just really gave into my innermost thoughts and ideas. You got to be authentic. You have to be 100% authentic, and I definitely see that in you. Tell us about the most what's keeping you up at night right now, and what are you most proud of?
What keeps me up at night is a couple of things. The challenges that we have around public safety. And I'm one that, who lived in a neighborhood where if people call the police and expect for the police to show, and, having to grapple with the fact that my constituents, especially in hard-hit neighborhoods, when something happens, they want to feel safe and they want law enforcement to show up if they call them, but then, pushes from, other, sometimes very loud, individuals or groups that say that we should be, not funding, that. Meanwhile, I see people, out here that are being shot and killed, like we had, a horrible weekend this past weekend. Things like that, and just trying to make sure that we're on the right, path there in terms of public safety. I got criticized last year after 17 people were shot at on Water Street after a Bucks playoff game. Had nothing to do with the Bucks. It was not at the Deer District, just nearby, and this happened. And I got criticized because I imposed a curfew, saying that after a certain time, young people should be in the house, right? And then just this past weekend, a 14 or 15-year-old boy or child was shot and killed at 1:30 in the morning on a Monday morning, right? But I'm the jerk. I'm the jerk when I say that kids should be in the house, right? So it's like it's battling, those sort of things. And then the other thing is the very dire and real situation facing the city in terms of its finances. We're in a really, really difficult position, and it's been going on for 20, 30 years. I don't have the luxury of time like previous mayors have had. Like, I've got to get this solved now. I got to get it solved right now, because if we don't, we're going to be in a position where we're going to end up having to lay off a quarter of the city's workforce. That'll have an effect on public safety. It'll have an effect on other services as well. And I don't want to see that for Milwaukee. As you said, I want to grow Milwaukee. I want to have further investments. I want to grow family supporting jobs. If we're not providing basic city services, it's going to put us in an extremely difficult position in order to accomplish those goals. So those are things that keep me up. What I'm most proud of, I think we've done a lot of things. The election certainly is something that I'm proud of. But going back to this theme of mentorship, no matter what I do in this office, I think that at the end of the day, when I leave what I will be most proud of is this Camp Rise program, which is a mentorship program that we started just this last summer, providing an opportunity for kids that would have been susceptible to get recruited into the Kia Boys and stealing cars. But we provided an opportunity for them to earn money the honest way with a stipend. Kids as young as 10 years old. We provided an opportunity for them to earn money, to get positive adult mentorship, to get them out cleaning up in their neighborhoods, and other exposure across the city, which is important for their future growth. And I think will create a positive feedback loop, because they want to continue to have those sort of experiences. So regardless of what I do here and however long I happen to hold the office, I think that's going to be the thing that I'm most proud of.
I'm going to put a link to the Camp Rise. There is information on Employ Milwaukee website about that. So I'm going to pop that in there. Thank you for that, Chevy. We got a couple of good questions here in the Q&A. And this is so Maria B, she asked a very similar question to the one that you just answered, but from a slightly different angle. She asked, what are the biggest challenges facing Milwaukee that the mayor's office and common council are able to impact? And what I'm going to add to that is what we need to talk to our elected officials, alder people. What is the impact that our leaders can make, and how can we support?
Well, I think that if you look back at Milwaukee's history, 5 decades ago, we had a high number of good paying family supporting jobs in heavy manufacturing. And those jobs, they dried up here. They went to right to work states down south, or they went overseas for cheap labor, and it left neighborhoods in a lurch. They didn't have economic opportunity. That depressed the opportunity to build a strong African-American middle class, a stable African-American middle class. We were on the verge of doing that. In fact, Milwaukee had the highest quality of life for African-Americans in the United States at the time. So we had to work to make sure that there are opportunities for folks to get back to that, to have family supporting jobs, not just downtown, but also in the neighborhoods. The mayor and the common council have a role to play in that, in terms of being attractive to businesses. For me, since I've been a principal leader in government, not just mayor, but also a city council president, I've been pushing for the opportunity for folks to have that sort of access. So when you look at the couture that's coming out of the ground, that was 10 years in the making. It almost died because of infighting in City Hall. It wasn't my district, but it was important to the city. It was important for jobs, especially jobs in the union construction trades, which pay very well. And I keep trying to elevate in this community as well here too. And so I work to make sure that building gets built and it's rising out of the ground, providing opportunities for people who live in those hard-hit neighborhoods. When you look at Pfizer, I mean, they could have gone anywhere in the world, but those are some really good paying jobs. And we pulled them from Brookfield. We didn't allow them to go to Atlanta or Nebraska or out east to New York, New Jersey. We made sure they stayed here in Milwaukee. And so they're going to bring the jobs that they had in Brookfield, yes, but they're going to add hundreds of more jobs right here in Milwaukee available to the people who live here. You think about Milwaukee Tool, they're going to create up to 2,000 jobs. These jobs are going to exist somewhere, and they were either going to exist far beyond where the bus lines would go in one of the WOW counties somewhere. I said that is not good enough. I need those jobs to be in the city of Milwaukee and accessible to people here, so that when young people are coming up through college, they don't say that there's no opportunity for them to make a good wage and a good job and a good tech job like that. And so now Milwaukee Tool purchased and is moving people into an office right here in the city of Milwaukee. There are other other buildings that are rising out of the ground right now that I've been supportive of and helping to push forward. I mean, FPC Live has a $50 million private investment that's happening downtown right now. It's the largest job for an African-American construction firm to build it from start to finish. It's going to be union from start and to finish, right? And that's providing good jobs for folks from the onset all the way through the in-use job. So the council and the mayor have a role to play in making sure that we are attractive to businesses and making sure they have access, our citizens have access to good jobs. Because when folks have that sort of access to good jobs, this is the way I see it. When folks have access to good jobs, it puts them in the position to create stability in their lives. They're not moving around so much. They can pay their rent or mortgage. They put food on the table, put clothes in their kids' back. The neighborhoods are not so porous. The people are not so transient. And when the neighborhoods begin to gel, because you got a critical mass of that happening, people start caring about each other. Neighbors actually become neighbors, not just people you happen to live near, right? They become neighborly, it becomes familial. And when that happens and neighborhoods gel, that's how you get to the greater public safety that all of us want to see. And so all of us have a role and responsibility in doing that. And the mayor and council have a key role in doing that.
So the folks listening, should they be attending community meetings, sending letters? What is the best way for them to let their elected officials know what their priorities are and support your overall vision?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly should reach out to their alders and tell them to be more friendly to opportunities to grow a people-centered city and a city where there are ample opportunities for family supporting work. I mean, they can reach out to their alder person by calling or by emailing and expressing those viewpoints. You certainly can go to community meetings and express a different point of view. A lot of times the people that don't want things to happen, they don't want progress to move forward, they'll be the ones that show up and will be the loudest ones in the room. But a lot of times I've come to find out in these jobs, whether as alderman, whether as city council president, or now as mayor, there's many more folks that want to see progress, that want to see things happen, that unfortunately just don't speak up. And I'll give an example around law enforcement again here. If you take a poll of people in the city, again, most people will say that they want to have a robust and adequately staffed police department, right? So that when they call or a family members of theirs call and they want service, that it gets there and they don't have to wait for 2 and 3 hours. But when it's budget time, right? And we're going through the very public budget process, only the people who say, we shouldn't, put funding there, they'll be the ones that come in mass and let their voices be heard, when we know that other folks have other priorities around public safety. So folks have got to speak up, and they got to say things. They got to be involved.
Thank you for that. Sean Hasbro has a question. We have an all African American leadership team at the city government level. Mayor, police chief, and sheriff. What is the plan to work together to solve some of our city's issues? What's the plan of action? Yeah,
and that's a great question. And I worked very closely with Chief Norman. The county sheriff is a little different. I mean, it's a whole separate unit of government, and their mission is different than that of the Milwaukee Police Department. The Milwaukee Police Department patrols every single street in Milwaukee, and even patrols, some county lands such as parks that are in the city as well. The sheriff's deputies, they're much smaller in numbers. They got a responsibility to patrol the freeways. That's why you typically see the sheriff would have pulled somebody over or respond to an accident on the freeway, as opposed to Milwaukee police. Of the 72 counties in the state of Wisconsin, Milwaukee County is the only county in which the sheriff provides that service, and all the other counties, the Wisconsin State Patrol does that. The sheriff's office also has a responsibility to perform bailiff functions in Milwaukee County courts and patrol the Milwaukee County Jail as well. So their missions are different. So as mayor, it's my responsibility to work very closely with the chief of police, and we do that constantly. And I'll tell you this, every 6 months, because I believe in transparency, and public safety is, a critical quality of life issue, and folks are concerned about it. And so every 6 months, we do a check-in, good, bad, or indifferent. We report the numbers that have happened in Milwaukee. And so when I first did this in July of last year, capturing January to June with the police chief, we reported that overall crime in Milwaukee was down 8% at the time. When we did it just a few weeks ago to capture the last 6 months of 2022, actually the totality of 2022, because of some of the strategies that we've implemented, crime was down 15% overall in Milwaukee, and violent crime was down 7% overall in Milwaukee. That's encompassing the fact that we have homicides that are off the charts in many cities across the country. Again, I was just at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Cities all over America are suffering because of homicide records being broken every year, but we're on the right track. And so our plan is to utilize new strategies in terms of making sure that we use police with our traffic safety unit and working with the Department of Public Works to curb reckless driving, which is a huge public safety concern and a huge quality of life issue. We're having the police to go out and use their resources to pull more people over and cite more people for reckless driving. We're having the police use new technology to be able to tow people. We have a new app that's kind of like Uber for tows, right? So if somebody's driving recklessly crazy on the street, the police can pull somebody over and tow them, which before they weren't doing that because it would take an officer out of commission for about 3 hours waiting for a tow truck. Now we got this Uber sort of program, and now they can actually tow vehicles. And we've towed over 150 vehicles since we implemented that new program. The Camp Rise program that I mentioned earlier, that actually is it's an upstream public safety program. The reason that it came to be was because I saw a news story where Earl Ingram had gone in and asked young people, how many of you have been involved in stealing cars or any violent events in the city? And every young kid in this classroom raised their hand. And I said, we can't have another summer like that. And so that's why we started this program, diverting, again, 200 kids as young as 10, because they're recruiting kids as young as 10 to go steal cars. So that's why we targeted that age and shifted them over here, into these positive experiences. So there's that. We're actually suing people who are driving recklessly on the streets of Milwaukee. Before that was not happening. Now we're actually, using the legal system to our advantage to hold people accountable as well. And I am stepping up as mayor of this city and saying that anytime somebody causes death, harm, or destruction in Milwaukee, that there ought to be a price to pay. I mean, think about it. Like, we need our leaders to stand up and say that. You can't have a functioning society if everybody thinks they can make their own rules of the road, or if everybody thinks they can go out and hurt somebody and nothing will ever happen to them. So it's important for us to say that. And I think unlike what's happened in the past from the previous mayors, I am calling out, and I consistently call out teachers, preachers, mentors, friends, and especially parents to do their part. Everybody's got a role to play in terms of public safety in this community. And I'm going to continue to stand on that. It's not necessarily politically popular, but I'm doing all those things. And I'm also working to support law enforcement as well. Because at the end of the day, if somebody's driving recklessly or shooting guns, it's not you or I that's going to go out and get those folks. It's police. And so we need to support them. In addition to that, and I know this is a long answer, so I apologize. We also have our violence prevention efforts as well that have actually done a really good job of disrupting violence in neighborhoods across Milwaukee. And those have been effective too. So whether it's holding people accountable, standing up and saying, hey, folks should be held accountable when they do bad things. Our upstream efforts with Camp Rise, using the legal system, towing vehicles that are driving recklessly, putting new infrastructure to mitigate opportunities for folks to drive recklessly. We're doing everything that we have at our disposal in order to address the issue of public safety in Milwaukee, and continue to be open to other things as well. If there's something new that will help to make the city safer, then we are interested in entertaining and executing on those things too.
Yeah, that actually answered a lot of the questions that were also in the Q&A. We won't be able to get to all of the questions in the Q&A because as you speak, people are having more and more questions. So Sophia is my partner in good on this webinar. You guys can't see her, but she's working behind the scenes. Sophia, if you can capture all the questions in the Q&A that we don't get to, maybe I can email them over to the mayor's office, and if there's specific replies, we'll get them those answers back. But as we close out, I'll ask you this question. It's coming from the Q&A, and I think it's a good one. Does Milwaukee have a branding problem, or is it really as bad as the media makes it out to be? I'd like to know your take on that question.
Yeah, does Milwaukee have a branding problem? I think that, so again, I was just at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And I'll tell you this from my experience there with those mayors. It seems like we have a branding problem here to ourselves, so lowly of ourselves, right? We do not beat our chest. We do not talk about the things that are great about our community. We point to, and maybe this is, maybe this is an effect of the fact that every time you turn the news on, the reporting is on the bad things that are happening. Every time there's something bad happening in the city, there's 10 things that are happening that are positive, and we just don't hear that well enough. So when I was in DC, all last week, and I talked to mayors from across the country, from Tacoma, Washington, to San Francisco, California, to New York City, to Rochester, to New York, to Kansas City, Missouri, to Kansas City, Kansas, to St. Louis, to Miami. All these folks, they have some connection to Milwaukee. They have been to Milwaukee. They know our brands. They ride Harley Davidsons. London Breed, the mayor of San Francisco, loves Summerfest. She's been here for that. All these people, they know Milwaukee. They appreciate Milwaukee. They love Milwaukee. They have been here. Their staff have been here. Many of the attendees at the conference have been here, and they're looking forward to coming back. I mean, even with the RNC that is coming next month, so many people are excited about coming to Milwaukee. The mayor of Tacoma, she was talking about this conference. I think it was, I don't know if it was an NAACP conference or what. There was a conference, it was in Hawaii one year, and she missed the opportunity to go. And the next year, the conference was in Milwaukee. And she was like, oh my God, I missed the chance to go to Hawaii. Now I have to go to Milwaukee. She came here and she was like, she could have worked for Visit Milwaukee. Yeah. She was selling me on Milwaukee. Like, people love this city. When they get here and they experience the city, they fall in love with it. So that's the outside perception. But when it comes to inside, we certainly have to work on that, because I think that for a lot of folks here, they think that this is the end of the line, and it's not. There's a lot to be proud of in this city. Even with all the challenges that we have, there's still a lot to be proud of. And I'll leave with this as well here, that a lot of people that are here that harp on Milwaukee about the challenges that we have, they'll be the first ones to go to Chicago when they got problems. I know last year there was a kid who got shot and killed right outside the Bean in Millennium Park. They'll be the first to go to Atlanta, and there was just an incident just the other day where police officers killed a young man down there. They'll be the first to go to New York, where folks have been choked to death on the streets of New York for selling CDs or whatnot. So there are challenges all over the place. If you watch the national news, you'll see that. So we gotta give ourselves a little grace and be encouraged about the positive things that are happening here. And there's so many more positive things happening in Milwaukee than negative.
Yes, give ourselves a little grace. Yeah. And the Midwestern modesty is cool when we're dealing with each other, yeah. But we got to start being loud and proud.
Got to beat our chest a little bit. Yeah.
We got to beat our chest. We got to sing our praises. We got good stuff going on here. Mayor Johnson, you got good stuff going on too. I thank you so much for being with us today. This is great. Right now, people are in the chat box showing you love. Everybody that's still here, I know you got to get to your next meeting, but go to the chat box, show Mayor Cavalier Johnson some love. What did you learn from him? Has he inspired you? What does he have you excited about as we continue to make our great city of Milwaukee even better? Chevy, again, thank you so much. You are an inspiration and somebody that we all can be proud of. I'm glad that that you're leading our city and you're bringing your whole self to it, just as an authentic leader should do. So thank you so much for being here with us today. Go in the chat box and watch all the love notes you're going to get. Show them some love, y'all. All right, so Sophie dropped a link to our website. We got 2 more sessions today. Tomorrow's mentorship morning is with Fire Chief Lipsky. I have a really interesting personal story that I'm going to share about him tomorrow. That's going to be a great mentorship morning too. So go to the website. Again, the virtual sessions, there is no limit on the number of people that can come to those sessions. So if you know somebody that's not already attending, that you don't hear people talking about it in your office, share. The evening sessions are in person. They are reaching capacity. So if you're interested, make sure you sign up right away. Thanks again to our sponsors, Associated Bank, American Family Insurance, and Radio Milwaukee for making this possible. Get back to work. Bye, everybody.